Hello everyone, and thanks for tuning into part 1 of the 9th Winter 2021-2022 update from GavsWeatherVids. So here we go again, it's Sunday, it's time to bring you another winter update, another part 1 of the winter update, and yeah, I'm going to go for it for you in a moment. We'll start off looking at the swingometer, so you'll find out how this swingometer is looking as of the end of the 8th winter update that we released in 2 parts last week, and then we shall go on and progress through part 1 of the 9th winter update. Will show things like Eurasian snow cover, sea surface temperature anomalies, you know, etc, 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 and it's going to be great, it's going to be fantastic. I should get on it for you very shortly. Just say that part 2 of this 9th update is going to be released tomorrow at 6 PM with the analog side of the update. And I say that'll be coming up for you tomorrow. I'll be looking at something completely different, actually, for this one. I'll tell you about that at the end of the video, later on in the video. Right, okay, so first things first, just say that the first video we see was our 7 AM forecast. We've got our live stream coming up at 6, so we'll be live streaming from 6 PM. So your live streams, we've got some long range and have a bit of a CFS special. I'm sure I have questions about this 9th update part 1. So yeah, I'll be taking questions as well in that live stream. It's going to be great, it's going to be epic. That'll be coming up from 6 o'clock. Thank you so much. Thank you so much to Shryan for all of the help on this update. Thank you so much, Shryan Bruin, for all of the help on this update. And also thank you so much to Rich as well. Thank you so much to Richard Traw for the amazing winter updates gift. And in a moment, you're going to see the swingometer from Rich. And there's data from Rich later on in the video as well. So yeah, thank you so much to Shryan. Thank you so much to Richard. Amazing, incredible work, both. Thank you so much. Just to say that all these winter updates, of course, are building up the picture forensically on a week-by-week basis until we get to our winter forecast. Remember, the winter forecast is going to be released on Thursday, the 2nd of December. So we're getting ever closer now. Once this 9th update's out of the way, we've got 4 more updates to do and 1 more season 1 roundup. And then that's it. We release the forecast on the 2nd of December. Each one of these updates are important unto themselves, but they're also helping to build up the picture for the forecast as well. So there is a wider, you know, wider hands at work, if you like, with all of these updates. So we're getting ever closer to the final stages of this year's winter update. It's been epic, epic, epic so far. I hope you enjoy them. I think they're the best updates we've done every year. I think we get better with these updates. So I just hope you've all enjoyed watching them as much as I have enjoyed doing them. And we've still got lots and lots and lots to show you, though, of course. Right, okay, so let's get down to business then. So the first thing we're going to look at is the swingometer. So how did last week's 8th Winter 2021-2022 update change things? Did it change things? Did it just stay the same? Or have we had a swing one way or t'other? You're going to find out in a moment how the QBO special and the rest of the 8th winter update affected the swingometer. So let's start counting this down then, shall we? Let's do this. So 3 and 2 and 1. Here we go. And our swingometer after 8 winter updates is now suggesting a colder than average winter is likely by 52% to 48%. We have swung back to favouring, with our winter updates after 8 updates, a colder than average winter. That is a further swing from mild to cold. And yeah, 52 to 48 now in favour of a colder than average winter. It's getting very, very, very interesting, isn't it? So, of course, we had the swing. We started off, you know, favouring cold. We had a big swing from cold to mild when we went through the earlier phase of the updates. Now it looks like we might be starting to move backwards to favouring a cold and average winter. You will find out at the beginning of next week's 10th update how this 9th update in 2 parts affects the swingometer. But at the moment, after 8 updates, that's how we're looking. The swingometer is favouring a colder than average winter by 52% to 48%. Wow, wow, wow. What a way to start off. Thank you so much to Rich for the GavsWeatherVids winter update swingometer. That was an exciting way to start, wasn't it? Right, let's have a look at some Eurasian snow cover data then. So we're going to begin with this. This is how Eurasian snow cover was looking when we did last week's 8th update. This is from the 22nd of October. So you see that we've got the snow line just there, and we had got a lot of snow cover across Scandinavia as well. We established going through the archives that we're doing, as well for Scandinavian snow cover as we have in many years back to 1966, or only a few back to 1966 was doing as well as that at that point in October for snow cover across Scandinavia. So how are things looking right now? Let's have a look at the very latest then. So this is it. And there we go. This is from Friday, the 29th of October 2021. You can see that we have lost a little bit of snow cover across Scandinavia, although we've still got quite a bit across central northern Scandi. Actually, that's how things look with Scandinavian snow cover. Last week, that's where the snow line is across Scandinavia last week compared to this week. There's clearly been a little bit of a drop back in snow cover there. Conversely, though, we have increased snow cover across Russia. So again, this is where the snow line was across Russia last week, more or less. This is the latest. We see there has been a further westward expansion of that snow line. Some way short of the western parts of Russia, however. Right, so how does that compare then? Let's start shutting down some of these tabs. So how does this latest chart compare for snow cover to the archives? Let's start going through them then, shall we? So this is last year, this is 2020. So I think we've got more snow cover this year across Scandinavia and probably across northern Russia anyway than we had at this point last year. Although at this point last year, the snow line had pushed down into the south of Russia. So swings and roundabouts really, probably when you even it all out, this year to last year is very evenly matched, but the areas that are covered are slightly different. I think we have got the snow line a little bit further west this year though, compared to last year. Have got more snow cover this year over Scandinavia than last year. That is 2019. So what do you think about 2019? I reckon we're probably quite closely matched to 2019 in terms of the Russian snow cover. Again, the areas that are covered are slightly different, but probably not overly different. And probably got a little bit less snow cover though across Scandinavia. That is 2018. What do you think about that? I think we're probably behind 2018 for Russian snow cover in terms of Scandinavian snow cover. Probably a little bit behind 2018 as well. That's 2017. We're behind 2017 at this point for Russian snow cover. In terms of Scandinavian snow cover, probably quite closely matched. That is 2016. What do you think about that? We're ahead of 2016 for Scandinavian snow cover. Probably a little bit ahead for Russian snow cover, though the areas that they cover are a little bit different. So at this point, we'd already got the snow into western parts of, into Eastern Europe, I should say, at this point in 2016. But there's this large gap just here. Probably a little bit behind for Russian snow cover, though, 2016, and ahead for Scandinavian snow cover. That's 2015, so I think probably a bit behind 2015 now for Russian snow cover, but ahead for Scandinavian snow cover. That's 2014. We are well ahead of 2014 for both Scandinavian and also Russian snow cover. That is 2013. And what do you think about that one? We're probably quite close to 2013, actually. 2013, I should say. 2013. Probably quite close for both Russian and Scandinavian snow cover. Now, that's 2012. What happened in 2012? We had the surge. If anybody has been with me from the very beginning with these winter updates, the first season of winter updates that we did back on the old channel was in 2012. If anybody has been with me that long, either put your hands up in the comments or when I live stream tonight at 6 PM. There will be a few people that were around, from 2012 will remember this, the surge of snow that we had after quite a delayed sort of snow cover season, actually. Right at the end of October, we had this massive surge taking the snow line all the way to Germany and virtually to France. Most of Scandinavia became snow covered as well. So obviously at this point, we are well behind for both Russian, European and and Scandinavian snow cover at this point in 2012. That was a remarkable year, 2012, and we've never had a repeat of that. You know, those sort of dramatic developments. That's 2011. We're ahead of 2011 for both Russian and also Scandinavian snow cover. That is 2010. What do you think about that one? Well, I think we're a little bit ahead of 2010 for Scandinavian snow cover, and probably a little bit ahead of Russian snow cover as well. That's 2009. I think we're ahead of 2009 for Russian snow cover, and for Scandinavian snow cover, probably quite closely matched, maybe a little bit ahead. That's 2008. We are well ahead of 2008 for both Russian and also Scandinavian snow cover. That's 2007. We're well ahead of 2007, both Russian and Scandinavian snow cover. That is 2006. I think we're ahead of 2006 for Russian snow cover. Probably a little bit behind for Scandinavian snow cover. That is 2005, of which, out of all of the years, 2005 is probably the closest matched, actually, to 2012 in terms of having that surge right at the end of October. So we're behind 2005 for Russian snow cover, probably a little bit ahead for Scandinavian snow cover, but the areas that are covered are slightly different, you see what I mean. That's 2004. I think we are quite closely matched to 2004 for Russian snow cover and ahead for Scandinavian snow cover. That's 2003, so we're behind 2003 for Russian snow cover and ahead for Scandinavian snow cover. That is 2002, so we're probably quite closely matched to 2002 for Russian snow cover, but behind, I think, for Scandinavian snow cover. That's 2001. We're ahead of 2001 for Scandinavian snow cover, and probably quite closely matched for Russian snow cover, maybe a little bit behind. That is 2000. We're ahead of 2000 for both Russian and also Scandinavian snow cover at this point in the year, quite significantly so. That is 1999, also ahead of that year for both Russian and Scandinavian snow cover, and that is 1998, and again, we're ahead of 1998 for Russian and Scandinavian snow cover. So very much as it was, and as it has been through these updates in terms of the snow cover season this year. For Russian snow cover, Siberian, Russian snow cover, you know, we're well and truly in the middle, really. We're neither particularly excessive for snow cover across Russia. We're not lagging behind a lot of the years, you know, the years that really lag. We're not with those. We're somewhere in the middle. For Scandinavian snow cover, I think we're still doing pretty well compared to a lot of years of Scandinavian snow cover. Not as well as we did last year, but as we come to the end of October, I think we've done pretty well, actually, for Scandinavian snow cover back to 1998. We can go further back than that. So this is 1997. Don't know anything about that one. So for Russian snow cover, probably quite closely matched to 1997. You have to turn your head around, by the way, with this. Kind of like have to stand on your head. So I'll just highlight where we are. This is the UK. And Ireland just here, that's Scandinavia there, and that's Russia, of course, there. So I think for Scandinavian and also for Russian snow cover, we're probably ahead this year of 1997. We're ahead of 1996 as well for Russian snow cover, well ahead for Russian snow cover, probably quite closely matched to Scandinavian snow cover. We're behind 1995 for Russian snow cover, probably quite closely matched, maybe a little bit behind Scandinavian snow cover. I think probably quite closely matched, maybe even a little bit ahead of Scandinavian snow cover. It is a judgment call, all of this. So let me know in the comments, you know, which years you think we're closest to. That's 1994. I think we're behind 1994 for Russian snow cover, probably also for Scandinavian snow cover. That is 1993. We're probably quite closely matched for Russian snow cover and a little bit ahead of Scandinavian snow cover. That's 1992. We're ahead of 1992, I think, for Russian snow cover, probably also for Scandinavian snow cover. That is 1991. We're behind 1991 for Russian snow cover, but ahead probably for Scandinavian snow cover. That's 1990. We're well ahead of 1990 for both Russian and Scandinavian snow cover at this point in October. That's 1989. We're behind 1989 for Scandinavian snow cover, probably a little bit behind for Russian snow cover as well. That's 1998. We're ahead of 1998 for Russian and Scandinavian snow cover, ahead of 1987 for Russian and Scandinavian snow cover. Notice at this point, 1987, virtually the whole of Scandinavia was snow-free, and that's what, long time ago, isn't it? So that's pretty incredible. That's 1986. We're ahead of 1986 for Russian and also for Scandinavian snow cover as well. That's 1985. I think we're ahead of 1985 for Scandinavian snow cover. Probably quite closely matched for Russian snow cover. Around all the years, that's probably one of the closest. I think, of course, you have to factor in that it's like a weekly anomaly compared to daily anomaly, and it's a very basic chart, whereas now we've got much more in the way of detail. So I would like comparing apples and oranges, but I think we're probably quite closely matched to Russian snow cover, to that and ahead for Scandinavian snow cover. That's 1984, so we're ahead of 1984 for Scandinavian snow cover, just, I think, but perhaps a little bit high for Russian snow cover. That's 1983, we're ahead of 1983 for Russian snow cover, and probably Scandinavian snow cover as well. That's 1982, so maybe a little bit behind for Russian snow cover, quite close to match Scandinavian snow cover. That's 1981, ahead of 1981, significantly so for Russian snow cover, probably ahead for Scandinavian snow cover as well. That's 1980, I think we're a little bit behind 1980, certainly for Scandinavian snow cover, maybe slightly Russian snow cover. That's 1979, which we're ahead of for both Russian and Scandinavian snow cover. That is 1978, so we're behind 1978 for Scandinavian snow cover, perhaps a little bit ahead, though, for Russian snow cover. That's 1977, and with that one, we're probably quite closely matched Scandinavian snow cover, but a little bit behind for Russian snow cover. That is 1976, which we're behind for both Scandinavian and Russian snow cover. That's 1975, we're ahead of that year for both Russian and Scandinavian snow cover. We're ahead of 1974 for Russian snow cover, but we're behind for Scandinavian snow cover. We are behind 1973 in all areas, basically. We've got snow line into Europe and across most of Scandinavia at this point. That is 1972, which we're behind for both Russian and Scandinavian snow cover. We're behind, we're ahead, I should say, Scandinavia, for Scandinavian snow cover at this point, 1971, a little bit behind for Russian. 1970, we are quite close, I would have thought, for Scandinavian snow cover, perhaps a little bit ahead for Russian snow cover. We're behind 1969, we've got 1969 back this week, we're behind 1969 for Russian and Scandinavian snow cover. We're also behind 1968 for Russian and Scandinavian snow cover. We're probably ahead of 1967 for Russian and Scandinavian snow cover. And then the last year is 1966, which we are behind for Russian and also for Scandinavian snow cover. How interesting. Right, okay, so we talked for 15 minutes, and I shall pause the video there, and when we return, we're going to bring you more data, but to let you have a chance to digest what you've just seen, maybe go up and stretch your legs, and get a cup of tea and whatnot, I'll pause the video there, and I'll see you in 2 seconds' time. Hello there. We're back and we're ready to resume part 1 of the 9th Winter 2021-2022 update. Been good so far, hasn't it? I've enjoyed it so far. Please smash your like button if you have. Drop a comment and let us know what you think so far. But we're going to resume and have a look at the quasi-biennial oscillation next. So here we go then. This is from NASA, of course. This is showing the current state of the QBO, how to think of the layers of the atmosphere here. So this is the stratosphere, just there at 10 HPA, and this is the boundary level of the atmosphere that we call the troposphere, from 30 to 50 HPA. So where we've got the blue colours, blue-green colours there, that's the easterly phase of the QBO. The brown sandy colour is the westerly phase of the quasi-biennial oscillation. So from the stratosphere into the troposphere, we have got the easterly QBO, the easterly quasi-biennial oscillation, descending from the stratosphere into the troposphere quite clearly. The easterly QBO is here and will remain so through the rest of this season. Been no deviation, no changes. All that's happened so far during these winter updates is that we've seen the easterly QBO beginning to push down further from the stratosphere to the troposphere. If we zoom in, have a close-up look, we can see. But yeah, you know, you can clearly see it, can't you, down here around that 30 HPA boundary. Clearly, the descension is still taking place. So at the moment, the strongest level of the QBO is this sort of level. But you know, the ECQBO is there. It's going to remain in situ for the rest of this winter, and it's just a question of how strong will the easterly QBO get. But it is going to be an ECQBO winter. Remember, that will weaken the zone westers. We looked at ECQBO winters last week, and that was partly what was responsible for shifting the SWIometer this week in favour of a colder than average winter. That data that we showed you last week with many ECQBO winters, mature, strong ECQBO winters coinciding with cold winters. Next week we will have the October QBO numbers. So this is from NOAA. This is showing monthly QBO numbers back to 1950 versus 2021. Just there we begin the year with the westerly QBO, and then we see that it reverses and goes easterly through the summer, and that's where October's number will be placed just there. We'll have that for you next week. So will we see a further strengthening? Will it hover around that sort of -16 level? You know, it's certainly not going to be weakened, I don't think, but we might see a further strengthening. But yeah, we'll find out next week. It'll probably be the first thing we'll look at after the SWIometer next week to see what's happened with the QBO after you know, October. Right, so activity next. So this episode is looking on outside of this today from solarham.net. We have got various sunspot regions, some there, and something going on just there. Despite that, though, solar activity is actually at low levels and is expected to remain at low levels for the next 3 days, as reported by Solarham. This is the GavsWeatherVids Winter Update Solar Activity Tracker, updated by Shryan. Shryan has kept this updated for us. Thank you so much, Shryan, for doing that. So we have had another big push up in sunspot activity over the past week. So the orange line with the orange spots, that's depicting each individual day's worth of sunspot activity. You can see that a few days ago we was up here, not quite up to the level we got up to in September, but you know, pretty big push up. Now we've actually dropped back a little bit in terms of daily sunspot numbers. So we're around there. You can't quite make out the orange spots, so that's where we are. However, the trend lines are lifting up. So the red line there is the 7-day trend. That moves around a lot. Of course, the green line is a 30-day trend. That moves around a little bit less, as it's a 30-day average, you know, rather than a 7-day average. So we see that 7-day average has shot up. The 30-day average not moved as much. If we keep this level of sunspot activity going for another week or so, then we would see the green line moving upwards as well. But at the moment, the green line is pretty static, but certainly the 7-day average line has moved up quite significantly. But as I say, we have dropped down a little bit from where we was a few days ago with those sunspots up there. Just telling us again that, you know, solar cycle 25 is progressing on. We are moving on into the more active phase of the solar cycle after a slow start. Now, who am I today? Let's have a look. Who's Gav? Oh, it's Gav Myers today. Oh, looking very sinister for Halloween. Wow. Thank you so much, Rich, for turning me into Michael Myers. How scary. Right, let's have a look at the data then. So this is showing spotless days and the current spotless stretch. So the current spotless stretch is 0 days, given that we have, you know, had sunspots. So that's not particularly surprising. For 2021 so far, we've had 60 days without sunspots. That is 20% of the year. It's comparable to 2010, which was the last sort of second year of solar cycle. We had 51 days without sunspots. That was 14% of the year. So actually, you know, 2021 has been slightly weaker than 2010 in terms of spotless days. We've had more spotless days this year than we did in 2010. What we don't know, of course, is how much energy the sunspots we're getting now are emitting compared to 2010. They might, although we've not had as many sunspots as we did in 2010, they might be giving more energy this time than they did in 2010, so we don't know about that. But certainly been another slow start, as we established in our solar special a couple of weeks ago. Been a slow start to solar cycle number 25. Thank you so much to Shryan and also to Rich for the data. Thank you so much to Rich and to Shryan. Right, let's have a look at the Untitled Chapter then. So the AO observed forecast is looking like this. Remember, the AO is just an index that's reflecting the atmospheric state, does not drive anything in its own terms, just tells us what the atmosphere is doing. Currently, the Arctic oscillation is around neutral. After being a little bit positive earlier on in October, but negative in the first half of the month. GFS ensembles are forecasting that the AO will go quite strongly positive through the first half of November. So yeah, it looks like we're going to bring low pressure back to Greenland and to the Arctic and to the pole, maybe showing signs of beginning to power up the polar vortex a little bit, with the AO starting to swing into a more positive state. The NAO has been solidly negative since around the final week of September. Black line showing that the NAO have been well and truly negative since then. We're still negative with the NAO as we come to the end of October and into the start of November. GFS ensembles are forecasting the NAO to return closer to neutral, but probably still on the negative side of neutral, if anything, you know. So the NAO continues to look quite interesting, but the AO definitely swinging into a more positive state. It is quite unusual if this happened. Normally it's the other way around. Normally it's the AO that's negative and the NAO that's positive. So I'm not sure quite what's going on here, but the upshot is probably going to be a powering up of the polar vortex anyway, at its roots in the Arctic and over North Pole. Talking of that, this is how temperatures are currently looking in terms of the stratosphere over the North Pole. This is from the JMA. So the grey line is a trend line for this time of year, and it should be cooling down, getting colder at 10 HPA over the North Pole. Currently, the black line shows where we currently are. Temperature at 10 HPA, we're there. So we're not as warm as we was last week. Well, say warm, I mean, we're still talking about minus 55 degrees. So it was around minus 55 degrees last week. We are around minus 60 now. So we have had a little bit of a drop in the temperature at 10 HPA over North Pole. That's still well above the grey line. That's still well above where the temperature should be, you know, at the beginning of November. Should be very close to minus 70 now in the stratosphere over the North Pole. So stratospheric temperatures still remain above average there. If we go down to 30 HPA, which is closer to the troposphere, there we're actually continue to warm actually a little bit. So that's very interesting, isn't it? So, again, the grey line shows that we should be cooling things down this time of year. Again, at 30 HPA, early November, we should be around minus 70. We're actually just here. We're around minus 57 degrees, I think, over the North Pole. Remember, this is lower down to the troposphere. Now, what's interesting about that is that November tends to be a month you tend not to get stratospheric warmings at 10 HPA in November. They tend to happen later on in the winter, but you can get very early warmings of the stratosphere at, by this I'm talking about a sudden stratospheric warming, of course. You can get a very early sudden stratospheric warming at 30 HPA. It's normally focused on Canada. Now, there's no suggestion of that on this chart because we'd have to get the black line up to there somewhere. We'd have to see the black line going up like that. So no suggestion that that's happening. But it is interesting how at 30 HPA it's actually still warming up a little bit compared to 10 HPA over North Pole, where it's beginning to cool down a little bit, but it's still above average. This is how the GFS is forecasting temperatures to progress at 10 HPA over the next couple of weeks. So let's have a look at this then. So at the moment, the darkest colours, the deepest blues, are sort of pushed off over towards northwestern Russia. So I have had a little bit of a displacement of the polar vortex at its roots in the stratosphere over the past week or so. That's because of the warming that we had, you know, just talked about. So if we push on through, we can see that over the next sort of week, we're going to find those blue colours beginning to return towards like Greenland and Canada. So the polar vortex begins to slip back to where you'd expect it to be. That's because we're getting a warming that's occurring over Siberia. So we are seeing a warming of the stratosphere taking place there over Siberia in particular. It's not a sudden stratospheric warming, but it is, you know, a bit of a warm up. At that point, the Temperature at 10 HPA over North Pole has gone to around minus 60 to minus 64 degrees, which on this chart will be around here, I suppose. So even in a week's time, it's still going to be a little bit above average, a little bit above that grey line. Going into the XA range with the GFS, we see that not much change. There's no sign of a particularly strong cooling taking place. You know, we sort of fizzle out that warming over Siberia, so there's no sustained warming event going on, but just very close to or a bit above average. Like, we get to 15th November, we're still seeing a temperature around minus 68 to minus 72, which on this, where I am tabs, just there, so on this scale, minus 70, 68, minus 70, you know, would be about average, somewhere around there, maybe still a little bit above, not excessively so. But it's certainly no sign of a very cold stratosphere, and that's very different to over the past few years. Because over the past few years, at this time of year, we have tended to see the black line sort of going down to those sort of levels through the early part of winter. So this is a very different season, stratosphere wise. This is how the ECMWF and University of Berlin is forecasting things to progress at 30 HPA. That's a level that's lower to the troposphere, of course. This is for 2nd of November. So we sort of highlight the North Pole helpfully with this, with black X just there. Again, you know, it's relatively above average with both temperatures, not excessively cold. And Daytown, 8th of November. Again, we've got a bit of a warming going on just here at 30 HPA. It's not into Canada, so there's no sign up to like the 8th of November. There's no sign of a warming of the stratosphere at 30 HPA. But again, because this is a rather different, rather unusual season, I think we do have to keep an eye on what's happening at 30 HPA during this November. I won't be overly, we're not having for a very long time, sun and stratospheric warming at 30 HPA. I won't be overly surprised if that happened this November. But so it's something to keep an eye on. No suggestion when it's going to happen at the moment, but it could be one to watch. We will keep an eye on it. This is how the ECMWF is forecasting temperatures at 10 HPA over the next 6 weeks. So this is week 1, which will be the 1st and 8th of November. You see, just generally above average with those stratospheric temperatures in terms of the anomaly at 10 HPA, particularly so around here over towards Siberia. Go through to week 2, again, just rather above average, coming down a little bit over Canada, 8th to 15th November, that's week 3, 15th, 22nd of November, again, no sign of anything excessively cold, a little bit below average maybe across all parts of Canada, but over North Pole itself, not too far from average, warming over Siberia, albeit not a southern stratospheric warming. That's 22nd to 29th of November, again, just no particular sign of any particular sort of cooling going on. There's nothing dramatic happening in terms of sending things really cold with those stratospheric temperatures, and that's the 29th of November, 6th of December, and this is the 6th to the 13th of December, and again, you know, just rather above average, not translating to a sudden stratospheric warming, but certainly no sign of an excessively cold stratospheric temperature right way up to the middle of December, which is unusual. That is unusual over the past few years. In terms of zonal winds, this is how the ECMWF is forecasting zonal winds over the next 6 weeks. So at the moment, the zonal wind is very weak, of course. So we've had a weakening of the polar vortex, and so, yeah, we're below average. This thick red line here is like the average, it's a trend line. So at the moment, we're below average with the strength of the zonal winds. And we're going to stay pretty weak into early November with the zonal winds as well. There is a little bit of a strengthening of the zonal winds occurring as we go into the second half of November. That's this period just here, when we see the zonal wind getting back close to average. So ECM is forecasting second half of November, we'll probably see zonal winds picking up. That is going to strengthen the polar vortex, but it doesn't last all that long. And as we go into the first half of December, you'll notice this blue line decoupling from the red line again, and that tells us that actually the ECM is forecasting that the first half of December will weaken those zonal winds once more, and send them quite significantly weaker than average. There is an increasing number of ECM Ensemble Blue members, but I'm going for a reversal of zonal winds. That will be via a solar stratospheric wind. There's still outliers, but I think there's more of them this week than there was last week. So, again, I have to keep emphasising this. Very different what's happening in the stratosphere compared to recent years. And, you know, this is a bit of an unknown, actually. What's going on in the stratosphere, a little bit of an unknown. It's a little bit of a black swan, if you like. And what this leads to as we go into winter will be very, very interesting to see, because it is really different compared to what I've had over recent years with you know, stratosphere and whatnot over North Pole. Right, break coming in a moment to have a look at what's going on in terms of the 2021 Atlantic hurricane season. And then when we come back after break, we'll show you lots of oceans data. But currently, this is how the 2021 Atlantic hurricane season is looking. These are the scores on the doors, Miss Ford. So we've had total of 20 tropical depressions. We have had a total of 20 tropical storms. We've had 7 hurricanes and 4 major Category 3 or above hurricanes. That is unchanged from last week. That's the 2021 hurricane season page from Wikipedia, by the way. This has been updated by Schreier Brewing. My good friend Schreier has updated this. This is the 2021, this is the ACE index. We'll show you 2021 ACE index in a moment. But accumulated cyclone energy index going all the way back to 1851. The classifications for this are below normal, near normal, above average, and hyperactive. So let's come down through the years, shall we? And let's have a look at 2021 and see how we're doing. So this is 2021. Remember, each one of these storms, hurricanes, are emitting their own amount of energy that is ultimately calculated back into what we call accumulated cyclone energy, to tell you how much energy has been emitted by these storms through the course of the season. So, right now, ACE for this season is standing at 139.50. As I say, that is after 20 storms, 7 hurricanes, and 4 majors. So, that compares to last week, and there's no change at all. We have not seen any further activity, had a shutdown in this hurricane season over the past 3 or 4 weeks. So, from last week, no change. ACE, this time last week, when we did the 8th update, was at 139.50. It's still at that, after 20 storms, 7 hurricanes, and 4 majors. How we compare to our running average. So we're still a little bit ahead of our running average at this point at the end of October. You expect to have an ACE of around 115.30 after 13 storms, 7 hurricanes, and 3 majors. So yes, you know, it's still above average for the season overall, as we see the classification just there. In terms of this time last year, when we did the night winter update last year, we are now a little bit behind last year's hurricane season for ACE. At this point, we got to 143.80, so 2020 is actually now pulling ahead slightly of 2021, and that was after 27 hurricane storms, I should say, 11 hurricanes and 4 majors, above normal this time last year, and eventually we did get to hyperactive. We'll be interested to see whether the hurricane season picks back up again or not, won't it? We'll find out over the next week or two. Thank you so much to Schreier for that data. Right, okay, so we're doing quite well for time, actually, with this one. I'm going to pause the video there, and when we come back, as I said, we're going to have lots of oceans data. So we'll be talking, we'll have a look at what's going on with sea surface temperature currently. We will also have a look at what's happening with ENSO, and then we're going to go back through the archives, and we'll go back to 1985 and see how we're doing for our ocean temperatures this year to 1985. So unique content coming up for you once again, but you digest what you've just seen, go on, stretch your legs, and I'll see you in 2 seconds time. That's if you want to, of course. If you don't, well, I'll just be back in around a second. See you soon. Okay, we're back and we're ready to resume part 1 of the 9th Winter 2021-2022 update from GavsWeatherVids. It's been good so far, hasn't it? I hope you've enjoyed it so far. Please smash the like button if you have. Let us know in the comments what you think. And make sure to subscribe to our channel. You're going to be able to see future weather content, including future winter updates, if you do that. Thank you so much, everyone. Right, so where we left off before, we were looking at the 2021 Atlantic hurricane season, and very much connected to that is sea surface temperature anomalies. So let's have a look at those, shall we? So this is how sea surface temperature anomalies were looking when we did last week's 8th winter 2021-2022 update. We've got our 4 areas of interest. We've got the ENSO region just here, the equatorial Pacific Ocean, got the Northern Pacific over there. We've got the Indian Ocean just here, and then we've got the North Atlantic Ocean just there. So that's how things look when we did last week's 8th winter update. Let's have a look at the very latest then. See what's happened. There it is. So dealing with the ENSO region, first of all, I think we've seen a further slight strengthening of the La Nina signature, this cold and average area of sea surface temperature anomalies from Peru to Indonesia. Here's a signature of La Nina, particularly strengthened just there, I think, through the central part of the equatorial Pacific Ocean. But all regions of the equatorial Pacific Ocean are showing a La Nina signature. So if we go back to last week again, I think you can see, but it has strengthened, particularly through this central part of the equatorial Pacific Ocean. Going further northwards, we see that the Northern Pacific, whoops, don't want to go there. In fact, let's shut that down. Going further northwards, we see that the Northern Pacific Ocean this week has cooled further. So we have that familiar horseshoe shape of cold. Now, I think that we can say quite clearly, definitively, we are in a cold PDO, Pacific Decadel Oscillation phase. We've been in that for a couple of months, actually, but it is continuing to strengthen. So cold PDO signature up there, combined with a moderate, weak to moderate La Nina signature just there. The Pacific is looking quite cold. Now, over in the Indian Ocean, go back to last week, and that's how the Indian Ocean was looking last week. This is how the Indian Ocean looks this week. So just generally warming up a little bit in the Indian Ocean. This is not a signature for a negative IOD, because it has to be cold there, or cooler there, and warmer there. So that's not a positive IOD. It's not a negative IOD signature either, but I think it's basically around neutral now with the Indian Ocean dipole. So that shouldn't be too much of an issue as we go into winter, unless we start to see things becoming quite a lot colder through there. But at the moment, it actually looks pretty warm through there. So I don't think the Indian Ocean is too much to worry about. We'll probably have a look at the IOD next week a little bit more. And then in the North Atlantic, that's how things looked last week in the North Atlantic. We're over here now, everybody. Look over there. Cast your eyes rightward, please. This is the latest. No real changes. It's cooled a little bit, I suppose, through the tropics, but only sort of close to average, not particularly cold. Most parts of the Atlantic still looking pretty warm. We've had a warm Atlantic Ocean for a long time now. You know, we've had a pretty warm Atlantic Ocean for quite some time now, and still it goes on. So this winter, it looks like it's going to be a warm AMO, Atlantic Multidecadel Oscillation, combined with a cold PDO, which is something we've not had for a little while, actually. It's tended to be quite warm up here in this northeastern part of the Pacific Ocean. And what that tends to do, what it has been tending to do, is promote a ridge up here around Alaska. And you get a ridge up there around Alaska, you will tend to send the jet stream northwest to southeast across America in that sort of fashion. And as that cold air sort of pulls out into the North Atlantic, because we've usually got low pressure up here without any blocking, that will tend to promote low pressure through there, and you will run on the jet stream then form cyclogenesis and bring low pressure into northern and western Europe. So remember, if you get high pressure up here, it will tend to send that jet stream on a northwest-southeast alignment across the states. If you have these cold average temperatures just here, that will tend to bring lower pressure through here. So this is a colder signal for like Alaska and the west coast of Canada and northwestern America. You'll tend to send the jet stream southwards with that, and then the jet stream will tend to rise up a little bit like that, and then can do something a little bit like that. So that's what the difference is, I think, between a cold PDO and a warm PDO. And remember, in the past few years, we've tended to have a warm PDO. Now, this area of cold average sea surface temperature is not a guarantee of a cold winter. It does not guarantee, it's never a guarantee for a cold UK or Northern European winter. But it is an interesting development, and something that we've not seen for a little while. We're going to go through the archives in a moment and find out how long ago it is, you know, but we have this kind of cold PDO signature. It's also in combination with a warm AMO, of course, and that tends to be associated a little bit more, I think, with a negative NAO. We will be, and of course, had a negative NAO just recently. We will be looking at the PDO and the AMO through reanalysis tomorrow in part 2 of this night winter 2021-2022 update with the analogues. That is something we have never done before. That's unique content. We've never looked at the AMO and PDO through reanalysis. We will be doing that for you tomorrow in part 2 of this night update. In terms of the overall 7-day change, so we can see that in the Indian Ocean, we generally warm things up. There in the equatorial Pacific Ocean, into the region, we've cooled things down a little bit through the central part of the equatorial Pacific Ocean. But Northern Pacific is just generally cooling all of the time. And in the Atlantic, yes, it has been cooling a little bit through the North Atlantic over the past 7 days, but the anomalies were so much above average, that still means we are significantly above average, and we're still above average just here as well. So not all that much change over the past 7 days in the Atlantic. The focus is really on the Northern Pacific, where things are cooling down still really quite dramatically. Just have a look at the Southern Oscillation Index. So the SY is an index that reflecting the atmospheric state in the Southern Ocean. Does not drive anything. So in terms, just tells what it's actually doing. When you're in a negative SOI, you will when you're in a negative SOI, you will have an El Nino signature. When you're in a positive SOI, you have a La Nina signature. Currently, the SOI looks like this. So it did have a couple of very negative days on the 23rd, 24th of October, minus 22, minus 21. 25th of October was also negative at minus 6. 26th, 27th, 28th of October, a little bit more positive. And then the last couple of days have been slightly negative. So the atmospheric sentiment is not convincingly in a La Nina phase at the moment, but I think this is only like a temporary deviation. I think the atmosphere will settle back into solid La Nina sort of phase, given how cold the sea surface temperature anomalies are. In terms of the 30-day average, that has dropped quite a bit over the past few days, but it's still solidly positive, around +8. And the 90-day average, that's holding quite steady, although it has dropped slightly. Let's have a very, very quick look at this then. So I'm going to pull this out. This is going to be from the CFS V2. So here we go. This is the region 3.4 forecast from the CFS V2. Maybe backing off that very strong La Nina signature that we saw last week and the week before. The temperature was on the side, but dates are along bottom in monthly periods. So at the moment we're around here. Obviously we are in La Nina territory. At the moment we're around there, somewhere around 1 degree or just under below average. Black dash line is on ensemble mean, and that's going down to around here now, which is still like borderline strong La Nina territory. But you remember last week that black dash line was going down to around -2, which would be like proper strong La Nina territory. So black dash line is now starting to be pulled back a little bit. The earliest ensemble plume members are these red ones just here. The more recent ones are the blue coloured lines. I think the CFS-V2 is possibly just starting to pull back slightly on its very strong La Nina signature. That'll be something to keep an eye on over the next week or two. I did say, but I thought the CFS was overdoing it. We'll probably finish up doing something like that in the end, which would be like weak to borderline moderate La Nina territory. That is still what I am anticipating for this La Nina event, to be honest. Right, so the last thing I'm going to do, let's just shut down these tabs, and the very last thing we're going to do is go back through the archives and see how we're doing in terms of sea surface temperature this year compared to previous years. I'll try to go through these as quickly as I can. So that's the setup. That's the setup. Keep that in your mind, everybody. That's the setup as of 29th of October 2021. Now, this is last year. So last year, interestingly, we had a very warm northern and northeastern Pacific Ocean, warm PDO signature. We had slightly stronger La Nina going on in the central part of the equatorial Pacific Ocean, and not as warm last year in the North Atlantic as it is this year. Right, let's push through. So that's last year, that's this year. Let's push through them. The Atlantic's warmer this year. The Atlantic's warmer this year to last year. The Pacific is colder this year to last year. That is 2019. So clearly the Pacific, particularly the northeastern Pacific, is colder this year, 2019. And the Atlantic is also warmer this year to 2019. That is 2018. Again, we see that Pacific was much warmer in 2018 compared to this year, especially in the northeastern Pacific. The Atlantic is much warmer this year. We go through to 2017. We did have like a slight cooling going on northeastern Pacific 2017, but nothing compared to what we got this year. And in terms of the equatorial Pacific Ocean, it's colder this year, stronger La Nina signature. In terms of the Atlantic, again, it's warmer this year, 2017. That is 2016. So again, you know, it's colder this year compared to 2016 in the Pacific, and in the North Atlantic, it's warmer. That's 2015. Obviously, much warmer in the Pacific in 2015, given we've got a Super Nino going on and a warm PDO signature in 2016, and a lot colder in the Atlantic. So I think 2015 can be totally discarded in terms of you know, a match for this year. But the oceans are very differently set up this year. That is 2014. Again, no real comparison to 2014 in either Pacific or the Atlantic. That's 2013. Again, we've got a little bit of cooling in the Northeast Pacific in 2013, but it's beginning to run out of steam. That was really the end of the last cold PDO episode, if you like. So beginning to run out of steam at this point in 2013. And again, just no real comparison either in Pacific or the Atlantic this year in 2013. That's 2012, when it is colder in the northeastern Pacific now. So that's the closest year to now, but clearly this year it is colder than in 2012. In the Atlantic, we've got a little bit of a tripole beginning to set up, interestingly, at this point in 2013. Look at that, we're going warm over cool over warm. That's a warm PDO year, 2012. The warm AMO, yeah, I should say 2012. That's 2011. That's probably the closest to this year so far in terms of the Pacific Ocean. It is warmer this year in the Atlantic, though, 2011. That's 2010 again. That's another very close year, isn't it, to this year? So now we're into the cold PDO period, and now you're going to see the Pacific much closer to this year. The Atlantic also not that far away from this year. Please let me know in the comments which years you think are closest to the current situation for both PDO and the AMO too. That is 2009. So what do you think about that year? So again, I think it's definitely warmer this year in the Atlantic. We are cold across the northeastern parts of the Pacific Ocean, and the equatorial Pacific Ocean was having an El Nino, of course, in 2009. I'll try and make some progress. That's 2008, so I reckon 2008 is quite close, actually, to this year in both the Atlantic and the Pacific, particularly so in the Pacific. That's 2007, so again, reasonably close this year to 2007. In the Atlantic, it's warmer, though, this year than it was in 2007. That's 2006. Again, we see that I think generally the oceans, the Pacific Ocean is colder this year, 2006. The Atlantic is probably quite close to 2006, though. That's 2005. Again, probably quite close in terms of the Atlantic. Maybe warmer, though, this year. The Pacific, probably a little bit colder this year. That's 2004. Again, I think Pacific is colder this year than it was in 2004. The Atlantic is warmer. That's 2003. Again, colder in the Pacific this year. To 2003, warmer in the Atlantic. That's 2002. We've got the warm PDO signature going on, so clearly no comparison this year to 2002. That's 2001. really quite cold in the northeastern Pacific at this point in 2001. More of a La Nina signature and warmer in the Atlantic this year, 2001. That's 2000. Again, these are all cold PDO years, so we're probably closer to these years for the Pacific. For the Atlantic, we're much, much warmer than 2000. This year. That's 1999. Again, much colder in the Pacific, and, you know, probably colder than this year, actually, 1999. In the Atlantic, much warmer this year. That's 1998. Again, we're looking very closely matched, I would have thought, in the Pacific. Maybe a little bit colder in 1998 overall. In the Atlantic, it's probably warmer this year, though. In 1997, looks like that. And no comparison, 1997, we've got a Super Nino taking place at that point. 1996 is generally colder in the Atlantic, significantly so in the Pacific. Again, probably colder this year than it was in the Northeast Pacific anyway, than it was in 1996. That's 1995 again, so warmer in the Atlantic this year to 1995. Pacific, probably not all that far removed. That's 1994. So warmer in 1994 in the Pacific this year. In the Atlantic, it's warmer this year as well. That's 1993. Again, it's a warm PDO signature in the Northeast Pacific, so that one has no comparison to this year. 1992, again, no comparison in terms of the Pacific or the Atlantic. Atlantic's colder, 1992 to this year. The Pacific is colder this year to 1992. 1991, again, no comparison. We're going so far back now that we can start discarding most of these years. That's 1990, where it is colder in the Northeastern Pacific. That's on a par, like, with this year, I suppose. The ENSO region, you know, we haven't got a La Nina going on, and the Atlantic is much warmer this year to 1990. That's 1989. Again, no real comparison to this year. That's 1988. Had quite a strong La Nina going on at this point in 1988, but again, the Atlantic is much warmer this year to 1988. That's 1987. Again, so much warmer. We're in the cold AMO period now. So much warmer in the Atlantic this year to 1987. No comparison. That's 1986. Again, another cold AMO year. So much colder in the Atlantic in 1986 to now. In the Pacific, again, you know, very different in 1986 to right now. Warm PDO signature in 1986. And finally, that's 1985. So probably not that far removed from the northern Pacific at this point in 1985 to now. But a stronger La Nina and much warmer. Again, that's the key thing to emphasize. Much warmer in the Atlantic this year to 1985. Please let me know, everyone, in the comments, which years you think we're closest to there. I've got my own view, which year I think we're closest to, which years I think closest to. I still think we're running 2010. Very close, I have to say. So, I don't know. I would probably get myself into trouble somewhere, but I still think 2010 is one of the closest. Maybe 2012 as well, but we've deviated a little bit from 2012 now, I think. But definitely 2010, I think, is still up there as quite a close match, both Atlantic and Pacific-wise. Anyway, tomorrow, in part 2 of this, so if you enjoyed that, then please let me know in the comments which years you think we're closest match to in terms of both the Atlantic and the Pacific. Tomorrow, part 2 of this Winter 2021-2022 update, we are going to have a look at PDO and the AMO through reanalysis. So we've established we're in the warm AMO and we're in the cold PDO. So you'll find out tomorrow through the analogues what that favours in terms of winters. If you have a cold AMO and a warm PDO, you know, combined at this point of the year, what does that favour as you push on into winter? You'll find out in part 2 of this Winter update, which, as I say, is something unique we've not looked at before in any previous winter updates. So new content coming up for you tomorrow in part 2 of this update. It was pretty good, this, wasn't it? I hope you enjoyed it. This is very unique content. I don't think anybody else online is doing this, not to this level anyway. So yeah, we're still pushing it out. We're still pushing the envelope, pushing the boundaries all of the time at GavsWeatherVids. And thank you so much, everybody, for all of the support. Thank you so much to Richard and to Shryan. Yeah, that's pretty much it for part 1 of this 9th update. We'll be back tomorrow with part 2. And don't forget the live stream coming up at 6 PM. But at 55 minutes, or just gone 55 minutes, the part 1 of the 9th Winter 2021-2022 update. That's all for now. And thanks for watching.